Hello and welcome to BrownBerry Chronicles. For those of you who've watched my previous episodes, welcome back. I am Mars, otherwise known online as BrownBerry or Hey BrownBerry. And to those of you who are watching this episode for the first time, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Here at BrownBerry Chronicles, I talk about all the things that are helping keeping me sane in this life. Mostly creative things. Knitting is a big part of this podcast, as well as other forms and mediums of making. Sometimes I'll talk about drawing, painting, and of course, all the other things to love about being crafty and creative. So that includes projects, acquisitions, and people and events online that I am involved in that help keep that creative spirit flowing. So thanks for joining me on the BrownBerry Chronicles podcast. As I said, my name is Mars. I live in South Florida and I work from home mostly. So that gives me an opportunity to always be in a nice, comfy environment when I'm doing my work most days. And when I'm not here, I travel around southern part of the U.S. And I have two girls. We homeschool them. If you watch episode 5 of the podcast, you'll actually get to meet them. And I have a wonderful husband who homeschools the girls and takes care of everything around the house so that I can go do my crazy sales job. So that's a little about me. If you're joining or rejoining the podcast, I would love to know a little bit more about you. Feel free to post in the comments if you're watching. Would love to hear about you and where you are, and would love to also know how you found me. That would be interesting to know how you found your way to this podcast. So I decided to do probably a quick episode today. It's early in the morning. Everyone else in the house is still in bed. It's one of the benefits of homeschooling. We don't have a very fixed wake-up time, although my girls are pretty good at managing their time, so they do usually get up about an hour from now, which would be about 8 o'clock in the morning. I was up early today and have been wanting to podcast for a while, so I thought I'd take this opportunity. So today's episode is going to have a few different segments. I've got my notes here, and anything that I talk about in this episode I will put in the down bar below this video, including links for you to access anything that I mention. So we'll start off with probably the thing that's taking over my life the most right now, which is knitting, doing lots of knitting. I would like to, in most episodes, start with any finished project that I have. I don't actually have a knitting finished project to share with you that's recent, but I do have on display a couple older finished projects. I have been doing a lot of shawl knitting in the last year, and I can't even really explain why, except that in most cases they've been great travel projects. I tend to pick shawls that are on the larger side, but don't require too much pattern as a crutch, as I like to say. So in other words, it has a repeat theme that I can memorize quickly and take anywhere with me, so that all I need is my yarn and something to carry it in, so I don't have to always be referring to a pattern. I do travel a lot, as I said earlier, road trips and airplane trips, so they're great projects for that. These two shawls, I'll talk about them in the down bar, what the patterns are. I really enjoy. So this shawl here is called the Great Divide Shawl, and it's by, I'm just looking at my notes here from Ravelry, it's by Michele Brown. It's on my project page on Ravelry. I am BrownBerry. Feel free to find me out there and connect with me. And this shawl is knit most of the way in 2 colors. It's really easy to do. Thin stripes with 2 colors, carrying the yarn up the side. I really enjoyed this pattern. The yarns are Tess designer yarns, Tess designer yarn superwash merino. Very soft and squishy. It has really good drape to it, really easy to wear. I like to wear it bandana style, so I put the point in the front and bring the outside length of it around my neck. So I love wearing that one. It's so soft, nice and warm, which I won't need for much longer. I live in South Florida, and I only need shawls and cooler weather wear for a couple of months, so I have to get the most out of it. But I still have so much fun knitting these things that I don't mind about the weather. So yeah, Tess Designer Yarn Superwash Merino. It's the Great Divide Shawl. I highly recommend this pattern because it was really well written and very easy to follow and made a great travel knit. And I love striping shawls and shawls with a contrasting border because it gives you so many options of yarns that you can use, and it's fun to pair things together. I have another one coming up that involves some color work, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So the other shawl is called Groovy. I can actually put this one a little closer. This is the Groovy Shawl pattern. You can see that. And I'll put the yarn a little bit closer. This is also a Tess Designer Yarns. I bought a lot of this at Stitches Midwest several years ago. So this was a great opportunity to use up some stash from a long while back. I love this yarn because it's got a lot of good structure to it. It doesn't create much of a halo, as you can see. Sometimes with 100% merino, you get a lot of pilling and fuzz. Not the case with this one, and I actually wet blocked it. The pattern is pretty straightforward, just some stockinette and reverse stockinette in this beautiful bright orange that I love to wear. And because it's asymmetrical, it actually stays on really well. It's got these longer arms to it. The pattern was super flexible, so it allowed me to knit to the size I wanted, and I have sort of an obsessive thing about finishing a ball of yarn when I'm using it if possible. I'm not a big fan of scraps, although I might be converted into using scraps now for things like contrasting toes and heels on socks, or I don't know if I'd ever be brave enough to do like one of those scrap blankets that I see people making beautiful versions of. I haven't done that yet, but I like being able to use a pattern that's flexible and allows me to go all the way to the end of a ball of yarn. Sometimes that means I'm playing yarn chicken and worrying and sweating it out towards the end of the project as to whether or not I'm going to be able to finish, but it's worth it to feel like I've used it all up. So this is the Groovy Shawl pattern. I'll link to that as well in the down bar, and hopefully you guys will check it out if it's something that you think you would like to make as well. Just lay that up there. So talking about, I think we are going to talk about things that are on my needles currently. So I've been watching a lot of great podcasts. I want to give a shout out to a few of them. I've been really enjoying the Grocery Girls, and I think thousands of other people are. I love looking at what they have on their needles. I've also been watching Legacy Knits, the mother and daughter pair. Grocery Girls are sisters. Legacy Knits is a mother-daughter pair. I like that team effort behind the podcast. I'm hoping to continue having guests on my podcast as well, because I just love the interaction when there's more than one person there talking about projects and commenting on things that they've seen and they've done. So shout out to those ladies because they're doing a great job. I'm really enjoying it, and I hope you'll check them out too. So on my needles this week, some things have been inspired by podcasts that I've been watching. There's actually a knit along going on right now for the 3-color Cashmere Cowl by Joji Locatelli. She's a pretty well-known designer from what I can tell. A lot of people enjoying making her patterns. And on the Grocery Girls podcast, in their Ravelry group, they're having a knit along for the 3-color Cashmere Shawl. I'll post a picture of that finished shawl right here. It's a gorgeous pattern. It involves, I think for most people, they're using the 3 colors as recommended. It involves some striping, a little bit of lace, and in most of the examples that I've seen of finished shawls, there's a pop of color. Some people are using hand-dyed yarns. Some folks are just going pretty standard. So it makes a great variation to see what people are combining. I'm just really enjoying now watching along, and I decided to join in the knit along. The knit along is the Grocery Girls 3-color Cashmere Shawl knit along. You can search the hashtag that I'll put right here on Instagram. And my version is here. It's just started. I'm going to start by showing you the yarns that I'm using. So my two main colors are going to be black and blue. So this black yarn is actually an unnamed, no brand yarn that I picked up in a swap many years ago. This whole shawl is being done with deep stash. This black yarn is 4-ply. I did a burn test. I looked online for how to figure out the fiber that you have. I did a burn test on it, and it looks like it's pure wool, which is great. Gives me a lot of options. It'll be easy to block. It's pretty thin. With the wraps per inch, I put it at a light fingering weight. Not quite a regular sock fingering, but it's good for this shawl. I'm actually doubling it in my Joji Locatelli shawl. My other main color is this blue Knit Picks Gloss fingering weight. It's coming up a little bit more blue here, but it's a really nice teal, almost teal color. It has a bit of a shine to it, which I really like, and I'm a fan of Knit Picks in general. I like their yarns. I've always used their needles, and they're pretty affordable. This is a true fingering weight, a little bit heavier, and it's going really nicely with the shawl. I'll show you. I've just begun. I'm still in the first band. So this is the beginning band. I decided I wanted the bright blue to be closest to my neck when wearing the shawl, and then the next stripe of black, and then there'll be some more solid bands of both of these colors, and then they'll be striped, mixed in with each other. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that'll turn out. I love a project where you just get excited seeing it kind of unfold, and the yarns feel really good. As I said, I'm doubling. I'm carrying 2 strands at a time on the black because I've just been playing with gauge as I go to try to match the pattern gauge. I actually am having to use different needle sizes for the blue and the doubled black, which I don't mind at all. Some projects take a little bit more effort, but it will be worth it. My pop color is going to be this bright pink. I did something interesting with this project. I went through my stash and put out a lot of different combinations. This happens to be another Tess designer yarn. This is the Super Sock and Baby yarn, also deep stash from Stitches Midwest many years ago. I love this color, and I'm not even sure how I haven't managed to use it more yet, but really glad that I saved it because now I think it's going to go really well with my other 2 yarns. In order to test that out, I actually undertook another sort of creative endeavor, one that's somewhat new to me. I've been drawing and painting more lately, thanks to my friends who are already really good at that, who've introduced me to this. So I used my drawing skills the other day to do a sketch of the shawl using the colors that I plan to put together. So I do better when I'm following a model when I'm drawing. So I'll hold this up for you. So I looked at the pattern. The pattern has some great photos in it. One of the photos was just, the woman in the photo, I think it's Joji in the photo, standing and holding the shawl out so that you could see all of the different sections. And I thought, if I could copy that drawing, I could test out whether or not I think these 3 colors are the ones that I'm going to want. And seeing it in the drawing, I did a rough sketch and then I colored it in. I was even more convinced that this was the set of colors I wanted in my project. So I might do this more often with socks and other things. It helps me to do my drawing practice, which I know I need to do more often in order to get better at it. And it helps me to plan things out, like this kind of shawl project or any kind of color work. I think I'm going to be combining these 2 creative efforts a little more often. So that kind of convinced me to cast on, and I got going on that shawl. The knit along in the Grocery Girls group, I believe runs for a while, probably through April, but I will post the information for sure on that. I know that Joji Locatelli also had a knit along for it. It's got quite a few finished projects already. It's probably over 400 by now. And I think that it's going to take off and be probably as popular as the 3-color cashmere cowl, which was wildly popular, and a lot of people have made that. And I may make one at some point as well. I just like the structure of the pattern and the fact that it allows you to have these blocks of color. I like how that looks. So that's one of the things on my needles. I've also recently been doing a lot of sock knitting. So this came about because I went way back, deep into my works in progress bin, which only had really one project left in it. It's a pair of socks, and I'll post a picture of those socks right here. So those socks were my oldest my oldest work in progress. I started those in March of 2013, and I finished them in March of 2016, just a couple of weeks ago. And they stayed in my WIPs because I knew very early on that they weren't going to fit me, who they were intended for. Then I tried them on my husband, and they were too big for him already. They were just too wide. And I made them in a DK weight. It was the Rowan Felted Tweed. I love the color. That purple is just awesome. But being a bigger weight yarn and being a new sock knitter, I didn't account for that in the knitting, so they were just way too big and baggy. I tried to recover it when I picked them back up recently to finish them by changing my needle size, by going right into the heel turn, and then I was worried that they were going to be too small, and I sort of overcorrected again and made the cuff too baggy. It's just a lot of hot mess. So my only solution was to felt them after I finished them. And honestly, I was just happy to get them off the needles. It's like I wanted to finish them. They could be house socks. I could felt them until they fit. So they're going to take a little bit of work for them to be really wearable, but I was happy to be done with those. My newest sock project came about because my friend Shelly, who is Ciao Luna Bella on Instagram, had talked to me a long time ago about her love of Patton's yarn for socks. So I went and got myself some. This is Patton's Croy FX. I think you can see the colors there. And this is just some Patton's Croy. I took the label off of this one in the color Flax. So this is Cascade Colors. Whoops. Cascade Colors and Flax in the Patton's Croy sock yarn. I found these at Michael's the other day when the girls and I were shopping together for some craft supplies, and I thought, wow, do these ever go together perfectly already? I'm just going to knit some socks with these and see what Shelly's been on about. And I have not been disappointed. I am loving this project. I decided to use the flax, the oatmeal kind of color, for the toes and heels and maybe for the cuff, and then use the Cascade Colors as the main body and leg. So here they are so far. I'm just about at the point of starting the heel. Hello. I love how the Cascade Colors gradient is just developing with the greens and browns and blues, and there's little flecks of blue actually in all of the different sections. And you'll notice that I did not bother to, I did my contrasting toe the same, but I didn't bother to pull out yarn to make the stripes match up. I'm not even sure if they would have on these socks, to be honest. I just decided that I don't really care that much about the stripes matching up on these. I just love the colors and I can't wait to wear them. Soon to be onto the heel section of both. I'm going to actually put them back on this needle or on a longer needle, I'm sorry, because I like knitting my socks 2 at a time. I had separated them because this needle was too short to hold both of them. I knit magic loop, and when you have a needle that's too short on magic loop, you end up doing a lot of fussing with it when you're trying to make your rounds. And I don't think these will be a very long project at all. And they'll move along faster. They'll move along a lot faster once I get them onto my new knit picks. The fixed circular needles, these are the size 3 in the 47 inch. And I have found that a 47 inch is just the right size for 2 adult socks being knit at one time. So I can't wait to convert those or move these over to those needles and keep going. So I'll have both of those things on the needles at the same time. So that's things that I have on the needles currently. I am project planning, so going on the needles. Up next will be the Anadama pullover in this Skye Tweed yarn. Look at this tweedy goodness. Oh my gosh. This brown is so chocolatey, and this Skye Tweed yarn is just the right kind of rugged. I don't know what the right word is, but you know that real woolly feeling without being scratchy. It's not like rug wool or anything, but it just feels like that real pure wool. This Skye Tweed yarn, again, deep stash. I'm learning about being a more conscientious knitter. I have been buying a bit, but I've also been finding opportunities to use the yarn that I already have. So this Skye Tweed, I'm not sure if they make this colorway anymore, but it's 100% wool, 110 yards in each ball. It is 50 grams for that yardage, and it's by Classic Elite Yarns. I think this is one that a lot of people were using at one time for like the cobblestone pullover. I think that's a Brooklyn tweed pattern. The Central Park hoodie, a lot of those are projects that many people knit, and I think this is one of the popular yarns they used. I'm going to be swatching for the Anadama. I think I'm saying that right. It's a pullover sweater by Bristol Ivy. I'm going to double check that because I don't like giving you guys incorrect information. Let's see. Yeah, it's a work in progress for me, which you can find on my Ravelry page. And I did say it right. It's the Anadama pullover. It has beautiful cables on it. I'll show you a picture of that finished sweater by Bristol Ivy right here. Love everything about this sweater. It just caught my eye when I saw it on Bristol Ivy's Instagram feed, and for some reason I immediately thought of this yarn and wanted to cast on. Now, I've already gone through one stage of swatching with the recommended needle size, and my gauge was too loose. So my gauge in the round is much tighter than my gauge when I knit flat back and forth. So I'm having to make adjustments because of doing different types of projects between the socks and my shawl knitting. I am having to be very careful about what needle size I use because I can't just assume that I'll get gauge based on what was suggested. So I did rip out my swatch, but I'm going to cast it back on again, make sure I can get gauge, and then get going because I know that summer is coming, so it probably doesn't make sense that the Jamaican living in Florida wants to have a wool pullover, but I just would like to have another garment project. I haven't done that in a while. I've been doing a lot of hats and now socks and shawls, so I would love to have a really well-fit sweater. So I'll keep you guys up to date on progress with Anadama. Speaking of other yarns, I've got some acquisition to share, very recent. I got this Knit Picks yarn recently, 2 different types. Oh, sorry. So this yarn is Knit Picks Stroll Fingering Weight, which sock knitters are probably pretty familiar with. And this beautiful, beautiful green. This colorway is Pea Pod, which makes a lot of sense. Beautiful bright green. And I'm coordinating it with this Knit Picks Felici, and I know this is a popular yarn. Sorry about the glare. Let's see. Hopefully you guys can see that there. That's better. Pretty accurate to the actual color. This is Felici in the colorway Candy Jar. Funny story about this acquisition. I'm not known for my patience with some things. I have great patience for people and most processes and the way things have to be. But when I want something, I tend to just be kind of fanatic about it. I was driving home from a work trip, and it was a pretty long drive to get back home. And I'd been thinking and thinking, I need some more yarn and I need some needles. I got to place this Knit Picks order. I hadn't had time to do it yet. And in my experience, I've always had great customer service experience with Knit Picks. And boy, did I test that out. I called them up, spoke to a very nice representative, and I said to her, I'm in the car, I'm driving. I can't really look at my screen because that would be unsafe, but I want to order some yarn. But I don't know what colors, and I don't know specifically which yarn. I just know I want it to be sock yarn, and I want to get a couple of colors and a couple of yarns that I haven't tried before. She was so patient. I placed this order sight unseen, basically by telling her, here are the colors that I like, here are the colors that I don't like. I'm going to use them for socks, so I'd like to use, a kind of well-rated, well-reviewed sock yarn, and both of those happen to fall into that category. And I told her I'm probably going to do contrasting toes and heels and cuffs, so if you could put two together that you think go well together, that would be great. She walked me through everything. She told me the gauge, she described the color, she helped pair those two together, and I decided after I placed that order with her on the phone that I wasn't even going to go and peek at my email confirmation to see these colors beforehand. I wanted it to be a surprise when I opened the box, and I was so happy with what she chose. It was awesome. So I don't know that I'll order that way every time, but it was a really positive experience. So I'm really happy about that. I can't wait to cast that on, but I'm going to be good. I don't want too many works in progress going at one time. I'm trying to retrain all my bad habits from when I started knitting. So I know that a certain number of works in progress is okay because it gives me variety. Too many, and I end up with just a pile of unfinished objects. I don't want that. Excuse me, I'm having some tea, my favorite mint tea. I don't do a lot with some of like the, I guess, more popular brands of tea. I just drink like Bigelow or Celestial Seasonings, but mint is my favorite flavor. It's a little weird to know that you guys are watching me drink, but I do need to have a sip of something. So yeah, tea in the morning with my sketchbook or with my knitting project is one of my favorite things. One more acquisition I want to show you guys, and I definitely want to plug this maker. The Organized Knitter on Etsy made me the best needles and notions pouch. I'm going to close it up here and then show it to you, because I want you to see how it looks closed and open. So this was a pouch that I picked out from the Organized Knitter. I'm not making it look very neat, but it's pretty compact and awesome. I am in love with it. It has this beautiful kente cloth pattern. In 1 second, I'm just fixing the strap to close it up. Sorry guys, bear with me here. It's really easy to close up. So there's the strap on the front side. Look how compact this is. This is my new little travel companion. Everything is in here. The Organized Knitter has different sizes of these cases. This happens to be the extra large because I have multiple copies of each of my interchangeable needles. And this case is good for interchangeable needles because it holds your needle tips and your cables. Hold it up so you can see. That, isn't that amazing? It also has a notions pouch, which I've like stuffed to the gills. It's zippered. Lots of space for cables, lots of space for multiple sizes of needle tips, and a wonderful feature that is a little bit extra. It's a custom order, which is getting these iron-on labels for each of your needle sizes, size 4 through 15. Love it. And my gauge ruler in there from Knit Picks. Love this thing. I have already made 3 trips with it, and there's such a comfort in having all of my stuff with me at one time. I used to have a much larger needle case. I'll put a picture here to show the comparison between my old case and this new case. Yeah, so seriously compact by comparison, which makes it so easy to put into my suitcase. And then I have an excuse to knit on work trips. I tend not to watch television or anything in hotels. In fact, it's very rare that I'll turn on a hotel TV. I like to read or maybe catch up on Netflix. I definitely love to watch my podcasts. So having a ball of yarn and knitting for half an hour before bed after a long day of driving and meetings and flying is a real treat for me. And now it doesn't matter. I can throw a ball of yarn in my bag and put this in there and decide on a project when I get there. I don't have to think ahead of time about what notions and needles I'll need. So the Organized Knitter on Etsy, she did a lot of custom work for me because I wanted a different color strap. And as I said, the labels on the inside were custom, but just a really affordable, well-made product. I love it. Highly recommend. I will link to her as well so you guys can check her out. So that's a lot of yarn talk. Hopefully you guys enjoyed checking out what I have recently acquired and what I'm working on. I certainly love seeing what all of you are working on. I'm on Instagram probably every day. On Instagram, I am Hey BrownBerry. If you ever want to check out my projects or connect with me, I would love that. On Ravelry, I am BrownBerry out there in a few groups at this time. In another podcast, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the groups that I'm in on Ravelry and what I'm enjoying about them. So feel free to check out another upcoming episode for that. So I think I'll make this one, short. I like for these to be shorter and easier for you guys to consume, maybe on a break or something. Hopefully I've given you some good information. I'll definitely provide some more in my editing process with links and names and other things. I hear coffee brewing. That means folks are going to be up soon, so I'm going to sign off. This is Mars saying I wish you a very good week. I thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to chatting with you guys again soon. Bye.